All right, back on another one, Dr. Zero Trust, talking with Ian McShane from Arctic Wolf. Ian, why don't you give a rundown on kind of who you are, what you do, and why people should listen?
I don't know why people should listen. My name's Ian
That's
McShane.
what I say too. I
How's it
don't know
going?
why anyone would. Yeah.
I think most people probably know me from my time at a analyst firm starting with G, where I spent a lot of time doing endpoint stuff. I've done my time at a bunch of security vendors, and I'm currently the VP of strategy for Arctic Wolf, who do security operations for the masses.
So let's go into that. So when you say security operations for the masses, I want to scratch at that because I deal with a lot of people that say that MSSP services, this is really more of a thing for enterprise, and they ignore SMB. But you guys have just been crushing it with that particular focus.
Well, this is the interesting thing, and like this is one of the big lessons I learned from my time as an analyst. Right, I was a product guy before that, and a security vendor, and I don't know why I didn't think of it when I was working for security vendors, but like as a product manager, you want to deliver cool shit, right? I don't know if you can swear on
You
this,
can
so I
say shit.
apologize if you
Yeah,
can't.
you can say shit, fuck, all that stuff.
So you wanted to build cool shit. You wanted to be Mr. Robot, right? You didn't want to be Mr. Ed doing the basic stuff. And the reality is that most organizations, almost all organizations, right, are not ready for the cutting edge stuff. Like we saw that with EDR, right? We saw EDR come out in 2011, 2012, and it's only in the last year, maybe 2 years, that it started to reach maybe peak adoption. It just takes so long for mainstream organizations, and the further down market you get, I think vendors seem to treat them with like those smaller companies with a bit of disdain, right? You can get Norton antivirus, or you can get McAfee consumer stuff. You can get all of the the small business stuff, but at the end of the day, those organizations have got the same security aspirations, right? They still want to transact, they still want to grow their business, they still want to do a lot of it online, they want to digitize how they're doing things, but they don't get the same level of respect that, I don't know, a Fortune 100 company would get. And it's super frustrating, and that's one of the things I picked up on in my time as an analyst. And seeing Arctic Wolf being able to deliver essentially advanced capabilities to smaller organizations that truly need that assistance has been kind of refreshing.
Where do they have it wrong most of the time? Because I know I'm leading the witness here, right? But as running into those small, mid-sized organizations, like you said, it's not usually because they just don't give a damn, but they're usually wrong somewhere. Have you seen like a trend or something that's just like, this is kind of where it usually is off base?
I'll challenge you with the word wrong, right? I think one of the things that really gets my goat about infosec or cybersecurity in general is that, and I'll generalize by saying we tend to talk down to people a lot, right? We talk down to end users, like end users are stupid. Don't click a hyperlink, you idiot. Like no wonder you're getting phished because you're clicking stuff. It's ridiculous. We talk down to end users, and I think we do the same with organizations that are smaller than enterprise. And I don't think they're wrong. I just don't think they have access to the same resources that everyone else does. Like, in fact, like the majority of organizations I come across, and certainly the majority of organizations that come to Arctic Wolf, right, they have got everything they need, like access to the tools that they need to reach that solid baseline of security maturity, right? But all you hear the security marketing is, oh, more tools, you need to do this, you need to buy that, you need to subscribe to this. But really, they need more help in the operationalization, right? Whether that's like fully managed, whether that's hybrid. I think you can start going up market pretty far and still come across those same kind of challenges, right? And I guess what I'm saying is all our customers have these security tools in place, and a lot of them are spending a lot of money, right? If you think about the vendors that are in the top right of various research documents, most organizations invest in that area, yet they still struggle with breaches. They still struggle to understand what they need to do next. They still struggle to keep up with stuff. And so I think it's not necessarily that they're doing things wrong. It's just the sheer scale of information security is too great for many organizations of plenty of different sizes too.
But do you think that? And I agree with you. I think you're right. I think we spend a lot of time sitting in our ivory tower, sniffing our own farts and saying it smells like potpourri. But I think that issue that I run into, because I do a lot of pro bono work with like clinics and people that can't afford cybersecurity stuff. I just help them if I can. But I think that it's one of those deals too where the market has kind of twisted the narrative so much in front of these folks that they're sitting there trying to figure out what to do. And there's so much stuff that doesn't work. Like I categorically am not a fan of people that rely on like phishing training. I think it's useful. I think it's needed, but it doesn't stop someone from clicking a fucking link.
Dude, it's security theater. It doesn't do anything, right? It's don't get me started. I'll lose my
people. I mean, I've had people. Yeah, like I've talked with folks, and especially in the midsize, where one of the first things they say is, "We have a great training program." I'm like, sure, so does everybody else.
Yeah, but so this is what I ask: is like, when you say great, what do you mean? Is it great for the company because they've covered their ass and they can fire someone for doing something wrong, right? And just say, sorry, we trained you, you're an idiot, get out. And then that's the liability for a security incident done. Is that what they're going for? Or is the training actually useful and is providing some insights into, what do all these stupid buzzwords mean that we all love in security?
Well, do you think in small and midsize, it's more of an endpoint-ish problem, or is it more of a corporate security sort of infrastructure problem? Because I mean, you could run a small business in straight up G stuff and be fine, I think. Yep. But you still see a lot of things like mixing into that mix, and I spend a lot of time going like, well, what's the purpose of this thing?
I think there's a lot of the threat surface can go away if organizations are able to use Chromebooks and G Suite, right? And then all you've got to worry about then is like phishing, secure your credentials, and that's the majority of the threat landscape gone from an end user perspective, right? That doesn't count the infrastructure before the pernickety viewers here start saying Ian's full of shit, because that's not everything. But if you start looking at the threat landscape and what you can actually control, like there's a ton of stuff that you can do from a basics perspective. But as you get broader and broader, you add more infrastructure, you add more, cloud services, you add more complexity just to the day-to-day job for ordinary employees and normal human beings that come to work and do their job. That's where things get more complex, and trying to explain why one thing is bad. And I use the example a lot, like clicking links. Like everyone and their dog says, you got phished because you clicked links. Phishing training says, oh, you shouldn't have clicked that link. I had one the other day, like where I clicked a link and it's like, I just clicked it to see where it was going. I wanted to see what it was going to call me. I didn't give it any credentials, didn't have to do any, sign into anything. It just said, you've clicked a malicious link. I'm like, God damn it. No, it doesn't tell me anything. How does that even help?
Yeah, right. Oh, you stepped on a landmine. Okay. Like,
Oops. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, oopsie. And I guess that other piece too, like you're saying, right? The ability to operationalize is where there's so much of a problem, and that's a really hard thing to solve.
It is, and I think it's becoming more like I think managed services has got a bit of a bad reputation, and I think there's like 10 years, 20 years of big dinosaur vendors that have kind of ruined the potential around managed services, right? But if you think about it more in terms of, if you use modern terms around it and talk about it in terms of automation, like an MDR service or a managed SOC service, for example, you don't necessarily have to call it a managed service. You're just automating the triage. You don't want to have to deal with it yourself. You're letting someone else take care of it. And I think it's become more and more interesting for organizations that realize they can't hire people. They've got too many tools. They've got too many things to manage. And even like mid-sized organizations, right, end up with 30, 40, 50 security tools. I can't even remember. I'm sure I read some of your old research not long ago that talked about an astronomical number of security vendors in the average company. And I'm like, well, if you've got all of those capabilities and those tools and you haven't got enough people to do it, why are you still trying to invest in more? I don't understand why or how this industry continues to be able to sell tools. It's ridiculous. And it reminds me kind of like 2018 when I used to take inquiry calls about people asking, oh, I need some machine learning. Like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to make fun of people that have genuine questions, but when the industry is telling you need to get machine learning to improve your security, and no one's explaining what that means, how that works, or what you're going to do, you end up with a ton of wasted time and money. And we see that a lot with the amount of overlap in tools that people have in organizations, that could be doing better, but they're spending money in the wrong place.
So then that the operational piece also is an optimization piece of that as well, right? I mean, I was on a call with somebody this morning that had the networking people literally couldn't even figure out which networking things they were using, and it was like, we don't see that this is an issue because they had 5 or 6 or 7 of them, and it was like, well, which one does what? No one could say. But and that's why I'm trying to. I want to see what you think is like, is that why this cost center just keeps becoming a cost center? Because it's just more for the sake of more?
I just think it's a fashion to add more onto it, right? If there's a problem, we're going to solve it with another tool. If there's another problem, we're going to solve it with another tool. And I think it's just spiraled and spiraled. And like, I think we're getting to the pinnacle of that now, where organizations are starting to say, look, I'm not going to buy any more stuff because we're not using everything that we're paying for. And when you start to see, and I'm trying not to shield too hard for my own company, but when you see Arctic Wolf coming in and saying to organizations, you've got, you're getting 12 alerts of the same information from different technologies. What are you paying those 12 different things for? Like, if you can get that from one, what's the usefulness of having that overlap? And maybe if you didn't spend 300 grand on 3 tools every year, how many employees is that going to buy you to be able to staff your security operations, right? Or to actually do some strategic security work?
Yeah, I mean, that ability to have the right things to solve the right problems that actually make a difference is one. Do you guys find that, or maybe I think it's a perfectly valid question, right? Is when you're working with a new customer, is there a period of figuring out what they actually have? Are you doing like penetration testing or red teaming or what? Or is it just like, look, we don't understand security, fix us? How does that work?
Sometimes it's a combination of both. Is that they've got security staff, or more often than not, is one person that's dedicated to security or dedicated to IT and security, and they're just trying to do too much. And like, what it comes down to is, like, our approach is giving them additional humans, right? You've been around the block as long as I have, maybe not quite as long as I have. I'm greater than you, but like,
Pretty close.
there's always been this false promise of security vendors being the extension of your IT team, the extension of your security team, right? And it's never really panned out until Arctic Wolf, until we figured out how to scale that human element. So we're able to dedicate the same people to the same customer, so they actually get an extension to their security team. And that's really important because it goes beyond technology. Like, as well as I do, information security isn't solved just by technology. You're never going to automate the human out of everything. And so you need humans that not only understand security, but you need humans that understand business, and hopefully your business. So the way that we approach it is that we want to learn everything about the organization, what's critical and what's not, like which assets are the ones that are important. And if organizations don't know, we can help them through that process. And I think that's where the difference between like a knee-jerk investment in security and an actual security plan is different, because it's a journey, not a destination, right?
It's not a one and done. It's a long-term marathon, right?
Yeah.
Because I think well, and that's something that's interesting too in the small and mid. I typically find that the big enterprise, because they know that it's a battleship and it takes a lot of yardage to turn a battleship, they know that this is going to be a year's. Like, I'm working on one right now where their plan is to be zero trusty by 2030, and I was like, actually, that's probably relatively accurate for you guys, but these small and mid-sized businesses, they're sitting there wanting the fix. They want to know, where's the rail of cybersecurity that I bang at a party and all of a sudden I'm good to go.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing, I think, is that a lot of organizations are looking in the wrong place for that easy button, or that thing that's going to solve it, right? I think there's so much marketing in our kind of cybersecurity bubble that everyone is focused on the endpoint, right? Endpoint vendors are the ones that are, becoming the household names if they're not household names already. Those that have been listening to the usual like XDR or AI buzzword marketing for the last couple of years should be forgiven for falling into the endpoint's going to solve everything. But like, honestly, if I look at the detections across our SOC, like, the most high fidelity detections don't come from the endpoint. They come from Office 365. They come from behavioral analysis, right? They don't come from activity on the endpoint. And I see the same kind of conversation a few times on Twitter, on InfoSec Twitter, about people being surprised that companies don't follow up when they get a malware alert, a successfully blocked malware alert, and they just move on to the next thing. And it's kind of crazy, because to me, that would be the canary in the coal mine. If something bad's happening because it's getting to the endpoint, like, it's not like, yay, endpoint saved the day. It's like, cool, endpoint stopped that, but what didn't they stop? Or what else is on that chain to get there?
Yeah, and that piece of being able to, I think that's what I find missing with most of the stuff in the space, is that total contextual picture. Like, I think we have, I'm SIM and all those other things. I think it's a great sort of approach of, like, you go to the doctor and the doctor walks in and he goes, hey, you're really sick and these results prove it. And then they leave and you're like, well, wait a minute. Can you tell me the whole picture here? Is there a treatment plan? Is there a fix? Am I going to die tomorrow? But no, they're just like, yep, doctor said you're wrecked. And you figure.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you think, like, the doctor analogy is an interesting one, right? Because there's a lot of treatments for similar sounding things. And I think we get the same issue in security. Like, we know that a lot of the security tools work very, very well when they're, like, funded, when they're managed, when, actively managed, rather than just, like, installed and left to fester, right? So maybe it's not actually a product problem that we have, or a tools problem, right? And I think that's what Arctic Wolf is figured out a long time ago. Like, of course, right, there are some real clown shoes products from time to time, right? But generally,
products, I like that.
There's a nod to my friend Anton with the word clown shoes, or clown show. But if the products work for some organizations, then it can't be a tools problem, right? So it has to be that operational failure of the industry. We're just making it too hard for normal organizations to be able to use this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the only people that want to be security people are security people, right? Why should we make everybody be a security? I don't want to know shit about finance or HR, or I don't want to know it, so I shouldn't have to. But why do we think everybody in HR and finance has to know security?
Yeah, exactly. And, like, we just have this really interesting focus on bleeding edge technology about, TTPs being able to detect this stuff, and really smart people putting all this stuff together. And, we've had this really interesting journey of going from, like, standalone AV to, God damn it, next gen AV. I'm going to get slapped for saying that, right? And then, like, EDR, and then SIM, and the disappearance of SIM, and the reappearance of SIM, and SOAR, and everything. And then you look at the clock, and it's like 2022, and like, I was expected to have flying cars and stuff, but no, we're still looking at alerts going left, right, and center. Right?
Yeah, it's I saw a flying motorcycle in Dubai. Maybe that's something people could ride.
What?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Oh yeah, I was like, I would fucking die on that in about 6 seconds.
I'm scared to ride my own motorcycle, let alone a flying one.
Yeah, it's one of those deals where you look at it and you go instantly, that's a bad idea. Not gonna how does I mean, how does the acceptance for Arctic Wolf, right? I mean, everybody else in the cyberspace has got some sort of cyber guard shield, something, but you guys are Arctic Wolf, and I think it's just kind of interesting to understand, like, how is the marketing around Arctic Wolf put together? I mean, I would look at that and be like, oh, is that maybe I don't know, a 4x4 that I take out in the woods or something?
It's funny. We just had our 10-year anniversary, right? So the company was formed 10 years ago. 10 years ago, so it's a decade. And so we had one of the founders, who's still the chairman, Brian Naismith. He gave, like, a nice talk internally about the history, and showed some nice photos of some of the architects and the founders. I don't remember what he said about the genesis for the name Arctic Wolf. There was some interesting names.
It's a cool name. I mean,
Wolf.
it's a badass name, but
I really buy into it. And you think about, like, the pack mentality and protecting everyone. I think it bleeds well into, like, things like HR, like, you come and work for the pack, and the pack's got your back. The marketing almost writes itself from
yeah, no, I hadn't thought of that one. That's actually a pretty cool twist on it. Okay, I mean, okay, so a couple more questions, because I know you got other stuff to do, but I just wanted to ask the specific question on, do you think it's smart for an organization that makes, I don't know, whatever, small business that makes candy, should they be trying to be a candy company that does cybersecurity, or should they be like, look, we make candy, we need some help on our cyber. And I'm again leading the witness here.
100% everyone needs help. I don't care who they are. I don't care whether it's a small company or a big company. And there are, other vendors are available. Arctic Wolf do a great job at what we do. And we can help organizations understand what's their cyber risk today and how do you start minimizing and taking that journey to end cyber risk. So 100% get some help, because at the end of the day, with the smaller the company is, the less likely you are to be able to hire the people you need to do the job. Cybersecurity doesn't turn off at the end of the day. I mean, maybe it does if you're small enough to shut down everything at the end of the day. I don't know. But, most organizations, IT is running, your businesses are 24/7. And, that's the same with adversaries. They're not going to go, oh, I better wait until the morning to give them, the fair chance of defending against this. So to be able to run that kind of 24/7 thing, you need at least 5, 6, 7 people. And that's just the basics to keep the lights on. So yeah, like 100% try and get some help. There are organizations that are willing to help and honestly do the right thing. That's the main thing.
It's okay, super, because that's the answer I give. So at least I know I'm not totally off. And then the other question was
either that or we both talking shit. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Probably, well, a little bit, but I mean, the other question is, do you feel that being operational, or I guess you'd call it good in cybersecurity posture, efficacy, whatever, is a competitive enabler for a business? Yes or no?
Yes, 100%.
See, I've had somebody recently on like stuff that I put out that they were like, no, it's not a competitive enabler, blah, blah. And I was like, you're fucking dumb. Like, that doesn't make a lick of sense to me.
Seriously, I mean, how can it be?
How could it not be?
Like,
yeah, I mean,
I don't give a crap about you or my customers or my, cybersecurity or anything. I'm just here. Don't worry about it.
Or yeah, if I get breached, I can get back to business faster than somebody else that doesn't. I mean, that's time to market. Like I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't, sniffing my own farts, because I was like, that seems like a really stupid response.
I'm with you, man. That does sound like a stupid response.
Perfect. All right, last one. So I always ask at the end of this thing, like, what is something you would tell someone not to do? We got lots of what to do, how to get better, all the other awesome stuff. What would you say to a business or an individual or whatever? Don't do this in this particular context around cyber. Pick it.
Don't treat your end users like idiots. Like, for most organizations, they are your detection and your response to ransomware. So help them understand when something looks suspicious. Don't treat them like fucking idiots.
Great, there you have it. I wish I could put that out there. Don't treat them like fucking idiots, because I'd probably have to put a little blip on the fucking part, but it is what it is, Well,
here we go.
I appreciate you taking the time. Ian McShane from Arctic Wolf. Thanks, man. It's always good to talk to you, and it's glad to know that you validated some of my thinking, which is always suspect. So I appreciate it.
I hope it's the right train of thought, man. Otherwise, we're both tools.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, man.